The world is heading into a new system, but it's starting to feel more and more like the old system. I'm going to explain to you why. Because as the saying goes, in the current monetary system, whoever owns the most gold call the shots. How about in that new system? Whoever owns the most BTC will probably also call the shots in that environment as well. Let's talk about it. All right, so I want to take a quick minute and just kind of follow up to the last RTD quick talk that I put forth in regards to the whole concept of tainted Bitcoins and how just having a publicly viewable ledger can be problematic in a lot of ways. But of course, there's a lot of projects out there that's working to improve that. Okay, that's fine. But yet there's an even greater problem that I think is worth talking about, and it has to do with what I consider the heavy concentration of the Bitcoin future purchasing power in the hands of a small few. And a lot of this mimics the current system we're in now. And so I'm not too sure how this is going to be beneficial for we the people overall, because as I've mentioned in several videos time past, that one of my biggest concerns, as well as being skeptical of this transition, is the fact that it was introduced to the people as being a way of putting power back into the hands of the people because it was not directly connected to the old banking model or the old government structure. But as time moves on and adoption becomes prevalent, more of the coins happen to be flowing into the wallets of a very small few, mimicking a tiered style system similar to what we have now, and actually put together some good visual ways that I'm going to share with you guys to kind of lay out my point as to why, for those that are in the space and excited about the space, be leery, because what's going on now may not necessarily be good in the long term, because absolute power corrupts. And therefore, if a asset class that is designed to be scarce in nature and unique and everything like that out of the hands of the bankers, what happens when it all flows back into their hands, possibly at some point? It puts us in the same situation we're in now. So this video here was inspired by the recent activity over the last week and having watched the cryptocurrency market take a dive. And of course, it dives off as part of the volatility of the nature of this space here. But yet, they're becoming more frequent in this current bull cycle for the digital asset space. And of course, everyone knows that it could be a lot of FUD and fake news out there, stories deliberately designed to create panic so that the retail investors can actually sell off, because all the wallet addresses that I'm going to actually thumb through a little bit, there was none of the big wallets, the top tier wallets selling. They were all accumulating. And so it's things like that that furthers concentrates power into the hands of a very small few amount of wallets. And that's something that I think is deliberate. And of course, I always want to piggyback on the fact that I think that there could be two ways to approach this. And that's why I've always remained open to being able to touch on both sides and not just being, single-minded in my viewpoints when it comes to crypto space. As I look at it as, one going left, one going right. If there's a fork in the road, there's one going left saying that the Bitcoin space and everything underneath it since 2009 is disruptive, is designed to pull the powers out of the bankers' hands. That's going one way. And then the other side is we can't go through a global monetary reset and the saying of you'll own nothing and be happy with it unless they remove physical property and everything related to the real world and convince people to accept the concept of welcoming a digitized lifestyle, ultimately going to the right. And that means it's a part of a greater plan. And so you choose which route you prefer to go down. But as I was thumbing through some of the Bitcoin addresses, so I just basically did some little homework myself, because that's one of the benefits. I don't have to just watch and listen to the news. I can actually watch where the money flows. And so over the weekend and the last day or so, I've really been paying attention to a lot of wallets. I actually broke it down into tiers. So as you guys can see on the screen here, here's a website here, BitInfo Charts, where it lists all the Bitcoin wallets for the most part. It classifies them from the heavy holders until the light holders. And I actually put together a visual aid, because as you guys can see, this chart here, if you were to look at it a lot closer, you'll see that at the very top of this particular graph on the screen here, it shows the amount of wallets that hold less than, say, 0.1%. It's a place where a lot of the BTC is concentrated at this current moment. But then again, as the pyramid goes down towards the bottom, it settles in at the peak or the pinnacle, and it mimics something that I sit around every night when I do my live streams, and it happens to be the whole Exter's pyramid. And so I thought about this. I was actually, on a treadmill running. I thought about Exter's pyramid. And after looking at this particular visual aid here, it reminded me of like, an inverted pyramid. Because ultimately, we got the people at the top and the things at the bottom. And of course, according to the Exodus pyramid, it's a matter of your risk tolerance. And at the very top is loaded with things that are high risk, i.e. derivatives or spinoffs of actual real financial products. And then at the very bottom, at the peak of it, we have gold. The most important, of course, silver. The most important monetary metals, because of course, gold and silver has always been historical money until the last, until ultimately January 2009, when the very first BTC block was mined. And the alleged Satoshi Nakamoto, whether it's his wallet or just a test run wallet, created 50 BTC at that current moment. So to get at my point, I was actually doing some forensics homework on my own. This was inspired by the last video I did on tainted coins and the fact that a part of this narrative of whether we're going left, whether it's disruptive, or whether we're going right, where it's a digital distraction, a lot of it has to do, and a lot of it will be revealed very soon. Because I was also looking at the hash rating power of various countries throughout the world. So as you guys can see on the screen here, the very first country happens to be China. And then, of course, it goes all the way down. And even Iran's in there. And so I actually saw an article that came out, I think it was Sunday, about Iran is mining, a nice percentage, 3-4% of Bitcoin, because they are on the sanctions list. And so my thought was, okay, we're going to find out how this plays out, because the question I put out there into the cryptosphere atmosphere, which I didn't get much of a response on, is that given the fact that they're cracking down now, the crackdown could be coming as a result of this decentralized space being a left field disruptive technology, or it could be a part of the system because they also want, piece of the action because it probably originated with them. So we're going to find out. But the whole idea was, if Iran is a sanctioned company and they are mining BTC, and then those BTC they mine, they're either keeping them or they're putting them out to the ecosystem. If they leave that country, because I'm able to view the ledger myself, so I can see everything somewhat geographically, and I'm assuming I'm not a forensic person to where I'm able to actually go into detail. But Epileptic, which is the company that I saw, did an audit on the Iranian activity. They can see everything. So here's how we're going to tell if those coins tainted or not are going to be something that can be a problem for you if you happen to purchase any type of crypto assets from unregistered, unregulated, no KYMC, no AML type of exchanges out there. Is that those Bitcoins mined in Iran, if they're part of the sanctioned protocol, and Epileptic, the company, can see them, they can then also taint them and tag them, and they'll float around the atmosphere, and they'll end up in somebody else's wallet because Iran needs the currency for their country's activity. So we're going to find out down the line if this is real or not, whether it's a right or left field type of paradigm thing, but we're going to find out. But what I want to actually get back to is the fact that Exodus pyramid. This pyramid here is a great demonstration of what I think the heavy concentration of power for the BTC community is going to end up like, where there's going to be a lot of coins at the top, but yet the most powerful and influential individuals will have the greatest bang for their buck because they'll hold the actual most amounts of BTC. And so as you guys see the visual aid I did here, at the top of this pyramid, there's about 29 million BTC wallets, all holding roughly, less than probably 0.1%. So I broke it into tiers, and this is a visual aid that I'm going to keep track of myself. I call it the Bitcoin Pyramid of Power, because it'll show us how heavily concentrated it is and what tier. Because ultimately what it boils down to is the Exodus pyramid was designed to sell people financial products and keep them up in the top sphere, because they wanted to divert their attention on what was on the bottom of it, which happens to be the point of gold and silver. And so here in this new Bitcoin Pyramid of Power, we're going to be able to actually track and see where the power or the influence over this new digital space is actually heading. And so at the very top, we got 29 million. At the very bottom, we got about 90 or so. And then within the last couple of hours of me doing this video, I noticed a change at the very peak of the Bitcoin Pyramid of Power. And it's no longer 90, it's a little less than. And so, of course, we know if you actually do some research of actually all the wallets, what I did when I did this visual aid here was I went from the very first Bitcoin wallet, which holds approximately 2,600 or so BTC. And, of course, the top 4 of the top 5 are exchanges. And so on this website here, it actually tells you and shows you who they are, what they are, and their exchanges. And of course, beyond that, the ones that are not labeled Those are the mystery addresses. Those are the ones where we don't know. But then what I actually did was I actually watched the inflow and the outflow of all the coins. And for the top 90, from number 1 all the way down to the bottom at the 90th address, which is approximately about 9,000 or so Bitcoin, at this current amount, about $370 million. So from number 1 down to 90, if you look at the amount of activity in those wallets over the last couple days, there have been a major increase. So the next question would be, who do those wallets belong to? And that's the point I want to get to, because a lot of those wallets, all of them, maybe except 4 or 5 or 6, had activity within the last couple of days or so, which shows that they've been accumulating at a time where the market has been, apparently been a sell-off. It's been, somebody's supposed to have been selling, but yet once again, who's selling other than probably the small hands, and where's all that flowing to? It's flowing into the top 90% of the wallets. And then as you go even deeper into the wallets, you see some things that really amazes you, because all the wallets, they have even amounts, or they're spread throughout, but majority of them have all been accumulating. And in the top 90, there's only maybe 1 or 2 that has not had activity in the year 2021. And so those are probably cold storage wallets, give or take. But you got to ask yourself another question. As this concentration of power trickles on down to the top 90% of wallets that are publicly visible, you got to ask yourself, who is scattered in amongst those individuals, and how and what are their plans for this entire space? Because my concerns is, one of many, is that the power will flow to the bottom of the pyramid. Or if I was to be real truthful with you, I actually created some more visual aids or whatever, where I'll flip this around here so you can actually see that the power doesn't really flow down to the bottom, it flows to the top. And then what mimics that same type of power structure? The current feudal society type of ordeal we have now, i.e. the same capitalistic type of approach, where true wealth always rises to the top, because there's people at the bottom that are, i.e. the working class, or the ones that have a very small say in what goes on in the current economy under the old system, or in this transition into a new economy with this alleged decentralized space called the Bitcoin blockchain. And so I wanted to put together some thoughts real quick and share my 2 cents on it. And these are things we should be concerned about, because as this sector grows, the concentration of power is limited to a few wallets. And then some people might say, well, hell, I don't mind if the power goes to the top as long as I'm in it. But once again, you're in it, but it's starting to mimic a lot of the old system, because absolute power corrupts. So my personal opinion, wallets that become too big will definitely become very influential when it comes to governmental structure, as well as being able to write the rules and regulations for the space, as well as other areas of our lives. And the goal has never been for you, people at the bottom of the pyramid, to actually reap the benefits of those that make the rules. And then another thing to consider is actually, where are all these funds coming from? And so one of the mottos amongst the crypto space is buy the dip. Okay, so when it comes to BTC, a lot of people, I'm sure, are buying the dip. But yet, once again, the dip, those that are watching this show, more than likely, you're at the bottom of the pyramid, more than likely. We're at the bottom of the pyramid if you are a person who holds Bitcoin, because more than likely, if you're not one of the top tier of society or the uber wealthy, and then I can go even a lot deeper as to who I think is really involved, because here's the thing. If this whole technology is disruptive, you better believe central banks will want a piece of this action. And who has the water spigot? Who's able to create currency at the flick of a button? The central banks. So I would imagine if this is really a disruptive technology, then a lot of the central banks, as well as hedge fund managers, uber wealthy, we know that in the top tier of this pyramid here, I can call off a lot of names. We got Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. We got Mike Novogratz. We got Brian Armstrong. We got a lot of early adopters in this space. And so those are the influential decision makers for the future of this current space. And so ultimately, those that are not at the top of the pyramid ultimately just go along for the ride. But once again, this tax regulation situation, I believe, is going to be a crackdown on a lot of the activity and profits that people think that they're going to be able to accumulate. And then you factor in majority of the people at the top, they're holding virgin Bitcoins, while majority of the people at the bottom, they're the ones that's probably getting the coins that will be labeled as tainted or stained. And the consequences that come with that will be very devastating for a lot of people, while the concentration of power ultimately flows to the top. So I want to actually cut back on this because I have a lot more I can say. This is probably part 1 of a mini-part series, because I want to actually keep track of this pyramid here. So I want to end this video here by showing another pyramid here, which is labeled the New World Power Pyramid. And so once again, where is majority of the people located at? At the very bottom. at the very bottom. And they're called the debt slaves. And of course, this particular pyramid here resembles that feudal style system where the government's at the top and the workers are at the bottom. But then also, it's going to mimic possibly the BTC holdings of the world, where the absolute power goes to the top and people with the crumbs at the bottom. And in between are probably the crypto influencers, those that probably have the very large crypto channels or whatnot. Those are out there, basically doing all the heavy lifting for the top of the pyramid. Because the people at the top of the pyramid, they're the people who run the infrastructure. They're the one that actually own the mining rigs and things like that. And they produce the virgin coins to keep amongst themselves and the institutions, while the people in the middle of the pyramid are the people who promote and bring in all the newbies at the bottom. So just want to share my quick thoughts. What do you think about this? Where did I miss it? What can you add to this? Give me some insights. I'm curious because there's a lot more I can say, and as I try to script this out, but yet once again I get off my thoughts. But I think I laid out a good enough point to where you guys can see how the concentration of Bitcoin power to the top of this pyramid here is going to continue to increase, because where all the power is, that's who makes the decision. And of course, we know based upon the old system, whoever owns the most gold makes the decisions. And I'm afraid that might be the same case here for the BTC community. But I could be 100% wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so. What do you guys think? Remember, their goal is for you to own nothing and you'll be happy with it. And does owning nothing mean settling for just digital ledger, blockchain, code type stuff? Because once again, at this current moment, they can see everything. And based upon the current monetary system we're in, we know how the all-seeing eye likes to know everything. So what make you think that same eye is not watching us now? I don't know. You let me know. See you later. Peace.